I'm Natasha, and today we're going to talk about how to speak English fluently every day. If you're new to our channel, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe, because we upload new videos regularly to help you improve your English every day. This episode will help you improve both your listening and writing skills as we share some real-life stories and examples. Let's jump in. Do you ever feel nervous when speaking English? Or maybe you find it hard to find the right words in a conversation? You're not alone. Everyone has faced this challenge at some point. But don't worry. Today we'll talk about easy ways you can speak English fluently in everyday situations. I'll also share a few stories to help you feel more confident. Let's start with a simple question. Imagine you're at a coffee shop ordering your favorite drink. How do you say it in English? Is it "I want a coffee" or "Could I please have a coffee"? Which one sounds more natural? Let me share a story. A few months ago, I went to a coffee shop with my friend Sarah. Sarah is from France, and she is learning English just like you. When she ordered her coffee, she said, "I want a coffee." The barista smiled but gave her a confused look. She repeated it, but this time she said, "Could I have a coffee, please?" And the barista responded with a big smile. "Sure, that sounds much better." From that moment, Sarah felt more confident when speaking English. She learned that small changes in how we say things can make a big difference in how people understand us. So how can we speak more naturally in English every day? The key is practice and using phrases that native speakers often use in conversations. For example, instead of just saying "I want," try saying "Could I have?" or "I would like." These phrases sound more polite and natural. Now, let me tell you about my friend Mark. Mark is a native English speaker, and I asked him how he speaks so fluently every day. He told me, it's not just about knowing the words, but about using them in real-life situations. He practices speaking English with his colleagues at work, with his neighbors, and even when he's grocery shopping. This constant practice helped him build fluency in his speech. So, how can you practice speaking English in your daily life? Start by using English in small conversations. For example, when you go shopping, try saying things like, "How much is this?" or "Where can I find the milk?" These short questions will help you feel more comfortable using English. Let me share another story. A few weeks ago, I went to a supermarket with my husband. While we were looking for some vegetables, I overheard a conversation between two people. One said, "Do you know where the tomatoes are?" And the other replied, "They are in the third aisle, next to the cucumbers." I thought to myself, that's a great example of how we use simple, everyday English to communicate. It made me realize that we all use these simple phrases in daily life, and we can use them to practice speaking English more fluently. Another great way to improve your fluency is by listening to others. When you listen to native speakers, pay attention to how they say things. What words do they use? How do they ask questions? For example, when someone asks you, "What's up?" you can respond with, "Not much," or "I'm just relaxing." These are casual and friendly responses that you'll hear in everyday conversations. Fluency also comes from understanding how English speakers think. For example, when talking about your day, you might say, "I went to the gym," or "I had lunch with my friend." English speakers often use simple sentences to describe their daily activities. By practicing this, you'll start speaking more naturally, just like a native speaker. And don't forget, it's okay to make mistakes. My husband used to make a lot of mistakes when speaking English, but he never gave up. The more he practiced, the better he got. His secret? He practiced every day. Now he speaks English fluently without thinking twice. One last tip for today is to find a language partner. You don't have to be perfect right away, but talking to someone in English every day will help you improve your fluency. You can practice with a friend, a colleague, or even someone you meet online. The more you speak, the more confident you will become. So remember, fluency in English is all about practicing every day, listening to others, and using simple phrases in real-life situations. By doing this, you will gradually improve your English skills. Stay consistent, and you'll see great progress. Let's continue. I want you to imagine this. You wake up in the morning, and the first thing you do is get ready for the day. What if you tried to describe your morning routine in English? For example, you can say, I wake up at 6, I brush my teeth, I make breakfast. These are simple sentences, but they help you build confidence and fluency. Let me tell you about Emily. She's a nurse who wanted to improve her English. She started a small habit. Every morning, as she got ready, she talked to herself in English. She would say, now I'm putting on my shoes. Now I'm drinking tea. It felt strange at first, but after 1 week, she could speak English more easily and with fewer pauses. It became part of her daily life. Now think about your own day. What do you usually do in the afternoon? You can practice by saying things like, I go to work, or I cook lunch. If you're a student, you might say, I study English, or I read a book. Saying these things out loud helps your brain get used to thinking in English. Let's talk about James. He works in an office, and he wanted to improve his English speaking skills. But he didn't have a lot of free time. So he found ways to use English during his normal day. When he answered emails, he tried to write them in English. When he had to explain something to a coworker, he tried using simple English words. And every evening, he spent 5 minutes talking to his wife in English. After 1 month, he felt more confident at work and even started helping his team with English communication. You see, speaking English fluently doesn't mean using difficult or long words. It means using clear and simple English in daily life. When you do this every day, your brain starts to think in English naturally. This is how fluency grows. Now, I want to give you a small practice. Think about your kitchen. What can you say in English? Try saying this with me. This is my kitchen. I have a table. I have a fridge. I cook food here. See how simple that is? You can do this in every room in your house. It's a great way to learn vocabulary and practice speaking at the same time. Let's hear another story. One of our listeners, Daniel, sent a message last week. He said he started talking about his house in English for just 2 minutes every morning. After 2 weeks, he could describe everything more clearly. He said, now I can speak about my home without stopping to think. That's fluency, being able to speak smoothly without feeling stuck. You can also practice by pretending to talk to someone. For example, imagine you are helping a guest at your house. You can say, welcome, please sit down, would you like some water? This kind of role play helps you get ready for real conversations. If you live with someone, like your wife, your husband, or your family, try speaking English with them for 5 minutes every day. Even if they are not learning English, they can help you practice. You can say, let's speak English while we eat, or let's try to talk about our day in English. These small moments make a big difference. And remember my friend, Thomas. He used to feel shy when speaking English. He told me, I always worried I would make a mistake. But then he decided to speak anyway. Every day he talked about his job in English. He would say things like, today I met a new client, or I wrote a report. Now he speaks English confidently, and he's no longer afraid of making mistakes. You don't have to wait for a perfect time to speak English. Start now with the things you already do. Talk about your day, describe your surroundings, ask simple questions, and give simple answers. The more you speak, the easier it gets. So, here's a small task for you. After listening to this podcast, try to speak for 1 minute in English. You can talk about anything simple: your room, your lunch, your plans for tomorrow. Don't worry about grammar, just speak. This small practice will help you become more fluent over time. All right, let's dive deeper into how you can speak English fluently every day. I'm going to share some real-life stories and examples that will make it easier for you to practice speaking and help you feel more comfortable. One of the most important things you can do to improve your English fluency is to speak about what's happening around you. For example, if you're walking down the street and you see a beautiful park, instead of just thinking about it in your head, you can say in English, "Look at that park. It looks so nice. I would love to go for a walk there." It doesn't matter if you're alone or with someone, speaking out loud is the key to feeling more confident. Let me tell you about my friend Steve. Steve is from Canada, and he's been learning English for a long time. He told me that he didn't start feeling confident until he began talking about his daily activities in English. At first, it was a little awkward. He would walk around his apartment and say things like, "This is the kitchen. I have a refrigerator. I have a microwave. I eat dinner here." It felt strange, but after a few days, he noticed something amazing. He didn't need to think about the words as much. It just started to flow naturally. One day, Steve was telling his wife, Emma, about his day at work. He said, "I had a meeting this morning. After that, I worked on a report. In the afternoon, I called a client. It was a busy day." Emma was surprised. She said, "Wow, Steve, you're speaking English. So much better." He smiled and told her, "I practiced every day, even when no one was around to listen." His secret was simple. Practice speaking out loud every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. This brings me to an important point. You don't need to wait for a perfect situation to start speaking English. You can speak about anything at any time. Let's say you're cooking dinner. Instead of just thinking about the steps in your head, try saying them in English. "First, I boil the water. Then I add the pasta. I stir it for 5 minutes." Even if you're just describing your actions to yourself, it's a great way to practice. The more you do this, the more natural it will become. When you're walking around your house, take a moment to describe the objects around you. "This is the chair. It's next to the table. I sit on this chair when I eat breakfast." You can even talk about things you're doing in the future. "Tomorrow I will go to the supermarket. I need to buy some vegetables. I will also get some fruit." You don't have to use complicated words. Just keep it simple, and over time, your fluency will improve. Let me share another story about my friend Julia. Julia is an English teacher, and she teaches students in her city. But here's the interesting thing. Even though she speaks English every day at work, she still practices outside of work to improve her fluency. One day she told me, "I started recording myself speaking about random things, like my plans for the weekend or what I had for lunch." She said that listening to herself talk helped her spot mistakes, but also helped her notice how much she had improved. By speaking aloud, she could hear how natural her sentences sounded. It made her feel more confident when talking with her students. You might be thinking, "I don't have anyone to practice with." But don't worry, there are ways to practice on your own. Let's go back to the example of cooking. You can pretend that you're teaching someone how to make a recipe in English. You can say, "First, we need to chop the vegetables. After that, we cook them in a pan for 5 minutes. By pretending to teach someone, you're practicing speaking in a way that feels natural and conversational. Another way to practice is by setting small goals for yourself. For example, if you want to practice speaking about your hobbies, you can say, "I love painting. I like to paint in my free time. I usually paint landscapes or portraits. It helps me relax." Every time you say something, you're making progress. Even if you make a mistake, that's okay. Mistakes are part of the learning process. And don't forget, it's not just about speaking. Listening is equally important when learning to speak fluently. My husband Peter is also learning English, and he listens to English podcasts every day. He listens to them while he's driving, while he's making dinner, or even when he's walking to the store. He doesn't always understand everything, but by hearing the words and sentences repeated, he starts recognizing patterns. This helps him feel more comfortable when speaking because he knows how to say certain phrases naturally. For example, when Peter listens to a podcast, he hears phrases like, "Could you please pass the salt?" or "I'd like to order the chicken." These are common phrases, and now when he's at the dinner table or in a restaurant, he can use them without thinking twice. He knows exactly how to ask for what he wants because he's heard these phrases many times before. You can practice listening and speaking at the same time. Listen to simple English conversations and then repeat what you hear. It's like having a mini conversation with yourself. The more you listen and repeat, the more your brain will get used to how English sounds and how to speak it fluently. Another great tip is to use your English when you're out shopping or running errands. Let's say you're at a store and you need to ask for help. You can say, excuse me, where can I find the bread? Or, how much does this cost? Even if the person doesn't speak English perfectly, they will appreciate that you're making an effort. Plus, by practicing these simple questions, you'll sound more fluent over time. If you're at the supermarket, try describing the items you're buying in English. I need to buy bread, milk, and some apples. You don't have to make it complicated. Just use simple sentences and practice the words you already know. Every time you speak, you'll improve a little bit more. It's important to understand that speaking English fluently is not about perfection. It's about consistency and practice. As you continue to speak and listen, your fluency will naturally improve. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. The goal is to keep practicing and get better each day. In fact, one of the best ways to build your fluency is by practicing with real conversations. You don't need to speak perfectly, just speak. Whether it's ordering food, asking for directions, or talking about your day, these small conversations add up. The more you speak, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. And remember, the people around you don't expect you to be perfect. They just want to understand you. So, speak confidently and don't worry about mistakes. I promise you that with time, you will notice improvement. It's not about being perfect right away, but about making progress and feeling more comfortable every day. Let's continue by exploring how speaking English every day can make a big difference, and how you can continue practicing with simple, natural conversations. This will help you gain the confidence you need to speak fluently, whether you are at work, at home, or just talking with friends. You don't need to be perfect, and you certainly don't need to use big, difficult words to sound fluent. Fluency is more about consistency and practice than about knowing complicated vocabulary. One of the most effective ways to practice speaking English every day is by making small changes in how you approach your routine. For example, let's talk about a person named Robert. Robert works in an office and has been trying to improve his English skills. Every morning, Robert spends a few minutes planning his day in English. He writes down things like, I will have a meeting at 10 a.m. I will check my emails at 11 a.m. I will take a lunch break at 12:30 p.m. At first, this seemed like a small thing, but Robert started noticing that he was using more English words and becoming more comfortable with the language. Even when he was by himself, he practiced saying these things out loud. This simple habit of speaking his plans out loud each morning helped him improve his speaking fluency. Now, let me give you another example. Sarah, a friend of mine, works from home and wants to practice speaking English. but she finds it hard to make time for conversations. What Sarah did was very clever. She started making her regular tasks part of her English practice. For example, while she made her coffee every morning, she would say out loud in English, "I'm boiling water for my coffee. I need to add 2 teaspoons of sugar. The coffee smells so good." At first, it felt strange to talk to herself in English, but she soon realized that this was an easy way to improve. Not only did she become more comfortable with the language, but she also started learning new vocabulary related to cooking, cleaning, and even organizing her home. And because she was saying the words aloud, her brain began to remember them better. When Sarah started doing this every day, she felt more confident using English when she had to talk to her colleagues during video calls. One day, during a meeting, Sarah was asked to explain her project to the team. She was nervous at first, but she remembered how she had practiced her sentences while making coffee. This gave her the confidence to speak more clearly and fluently during the meeting. She felt proud of herself because she had practiced in her daily routine, which helped her speak smoothly in a professional setting. Let's talk about another example now. Daniel, a student from England, wanted to improve his English, but he often found himself struggling to practice because he didn't have anyone to speak to. So, Daniel came up with a plan. He started recording himself speaking in English every day. He would talk about his plans, his goals, or simply describe what he did that day. For example, he might say, "Today, I went to the library to study for my exams. I borrowed 2 books on history. In the evening, I watched a documentary about space." After a few days, Daniel started listening to his recordings. He could hear the mistakes he was making, but he could also hear how much he had improved. By practicing every day, Daniel's speaking became clearer and more natural. The best part? He didn't need a partner to practice with. He was able to improve all on his own by speaking out loud and recording himself. Now, if you are feeling like you don't have time for these kinds of practices, don't worry. You can start small and still see results. Think about something simple you do every day. Maybe you walk to work or go for a run in the morning. You can practice speaking English during these activities. For example, if you're walking, you can describe your surroundings in English. "The sky is clear today. I can see the park ahead. There are a lot of people walking with me." These descriptions don't have to be long, but by doing this every day, you'll get used to speaking English in a natural and relaxed way. Speaking English every day also helps you get used to different situations where you may need to use English. Imagine you're in a grocery store. Instead of just thinking in your head about what you need to buy, practice saying it in English. For example, you could say, "I need to buy milk, bread, and some eggs. I also need to get some tomatoes for dinner." You might be surprised at how helpful this practice can be. Next time you go to the store, you'll already be prepared to ask for help in English or give simple directions in English if you need them. Let me tell you about Emma, another friend of mine. Emma is from Australia and she's been learning English for several years. She told me that one of her best methods for improving her fluency was practicing small conversations every day. At first, she didn't think it was a big deal. For example, she would call a friend and say, "Hi, it's Emma. How are you today?" Or, "What did you do this weekend?" These are simple questions, but over time, Emma noticed a huge difference in how easily she could have conversations in English. Her sentences became longer, and she didn't have to stop to think about the words as much. The more she practiced these simple conversations, the more fluent she became. And she didn't just practice with friends, she practiced whenever she had a chance. For example, if she was in the car, she would pretend to talk to someone in English. She'd say, "I am driving to the store now. I need to pick up a few things." Practicing with these small conversations helped her feel more comfortable with English in any situation. I also want to talk about how you can use English when you're working or studying. For example, Let's say you're studying English grammar or vocabulary. Instead of just reading the material, try saying the sentences out loud in English. For instance, you can say, "This is my vocabulary notebook. Today I'm going to learn 10 new words." By speaking the sentences as you study, you'll reinforce what you've learned. When you need to use those words later, they'll be easier to remember because you've already practiced saying them. Remember, the more you speak English, the easier it will be to use in your daily life. You can practice while driving, cooking, or even cleaning. If you have a partner like a husband or wife, you can practice speaking with them, even for just a few minutes each day. It doesn't need to be a big conversation. Just try to use simple English to talk about your day, your plans, or even your thoughts. Here's something you can try today. Pick one simple activity, like making breakfast or walking outside, and describe it in English. You can say, "I'm making pancakes. I need some eggs. I'm putting syrup on top." Keep doing this every day, and you'll start to notice how easy it becomes to speak English naturally. Even if you don't feel perfect at first, remember that fluency is built little by little, through constant practice. The more you speak, the more natural it will feel, and you'll start speaking English with confidence every day. Now let's keep going with this practice. You can do it. Just keep talking, keep practicing, and remember that fluency is a journey, not a destination. The more you speak in everyday situations, the better you'll get. So let's continue on this path and remember to practice whenever you can. Let's dive deeper into the idea of practicing English every day. This approach doesn't have to be difficult, and it can easily fit into your daily routine. In fact, the more you speak English, the easier it becomes to use the language naturally in real-life situations. So, let's explore a few more examples of how you can fit English practice into your life, just like many people do. These everyday activities can help you build fluency and confidence without even thinking about it. First, let's talk about James. James is a teacher, and his work requires him to speak English to his students every day. However, before becoming a teacher, he wasn't very confident in speaking English. To improve, he started using his commute time to practice. Instead of just listening to music or the radio, he would talk to himself in English during his drive to work. James would describe what he saw on the road. "There's a red car in front of me. The weather is sunny today. I'm passing the bakery now." At first, it felt strange to speak aloud by himself, but over time it became a routine. By the time he arrived at work, James was already in the habit of speaking English, and it helped him feel much more confident when he had to speak to his students during class. This story is a great example of how you can use small moments, like your commute, to practice English. You don't need to make big changes to your routine. Just add a little English practice into what you're already doing. If you drive to work or school, take advantage of that time to describe things out loud. Or, if you take public transportation, use that time to think in English and mentally describe what's going on around you. By incorporating English into the things you already do, you'll get better at using it in real situations. Another example comes from Claire, who works as a software developer. Claire didn't feel very confident speaking English, but she knew that practicing every day would help her. So Claire set a simple goal. She decided to talk about what she was doing at work in English. For example, if she was working on a coding project, she would say things like, "I am writing code for the new website. I need to test the features later. The code looks good so far." Even though she was working alone, Claire found that this practice helped her remember technical terms in English. It also made her feel more comfortable speaking to her colleagues in English during meetings. By describing her work process in English every day, she gained fluency in a specific area of vocabulary, which made her feel more confident and professional. If you're someone who works in an office or does any kind of professional work, you can take a lesson from Claire. Try talking about your daily tasks or professional goals in English. Even if no one else is around to hear you, practicing speaking out loud will help you get used to using English naturally. For instance, if you're preparing a presentation, for work you could practice speaking your ideas out loud in English, just as if you were presenting to a colleague. Or if you're writing an email, you could speak the message aloud before typing it. The more you practice this, the better you'll get at expressing yourself in English, especially in professional settings. Now let's talk about Emily, who is learning English as a second language while also working as a nurse. Emily's job requires her to speak to patients and colleagues every day, so she decided to use this as a way to practice her English. She would think about the things she needed to say before she said them. For example, before going into a patient's room, she would quietly rehearse in her head what she was going to say, like, "Good morning, Mr. Smith. How are you today? I'm going to check your blood pressure now." At first, Emily felt a little awkward, but with time, she got used to practicing these phrases in her head before speaking. This routine helped her build confidence, especially when she had to speak to patients in stressful situations. It also helped her learn important medical vocabulary and improve her ability to communicate in English at work. This strategy is useful for anyone working in a job where you need to communicate with others in English. Whether you work in healthcare, business, or another field, taking a few moments to rehearse what you're going to say in English can be a great way to practice. For example, if you're about to make a phone call to a colleague, you can rehearse your message in English before picking up the phone. Or if you're preparing to explain a complex idea, you can practice saying it out loud in simpler English. This can help you become more comfortable with the language and improve your fluency in real-world situations. But what if you're not working or commuting every day? Don't worry, there are still plenty of ways to practice English in your daily life. One simple thing you can do is to start journaling in English. Journaling doesn't have to be long or complicated. It could be as simple as writing a few sentences about your day, like, "Today was a busy day. I went to the park and met with some friends. We talked about the new movie we want to see." The key is to write regularly, even if it's just for a few minutes each day. When you write in English, you're not only practicing your writing skills, but you're also improving your speaking skills. This is because writing helps you organize your thoughts and make sentences flow more naturally, which will help when you speak. Let's talk about Daniel, a university student who started using journaling as a tool to improve his English. Daniel had been struggling to find a consistent way to practice, so he decided to write about his day in English every evening before bed. It wasn't a big task, just a few sentences to summarize what happened that day. After doing this for a few weeks, Daniel realized that his writing was becoming more fluid, and he was starting to speak English more easily. This simple daily practice helped him find the right words faster when he was in conversation, and he felt more confident speaking English in class discussions and with friends. Even if you're not a fan of writing, you can also try speaking your journal entries aloud. This way, you practice both writing and speaking at the same time. For instance, after writing about your day, read it aloud in English, paying attention to your pronunciation and fluency. This is a great way to reinforce what you've written and get used to speaking English smoothly. Another easy way to practice speaking every day is by describing things around you. For example, while walking through your house, you can describe what you see. "There's the kitchen. The fridge is next to the sink. I need to clean the counter later." Or, while walking outside, you could say, "The trees are tall today. The weather is a little cold. I'm going to take a walk in the park." This helps you build vocabulary and think in English. It also teaches you how to form sentences quickly, which is important for fluency. The goal is to make English a part of your daily life, not just something you study in isolation. You want to be able to think and speak in English naturally, just like you do in your native language. The more you incorporate English into your everyday activities, the easier it will become to use it when you need it. Whether it's through journaling, talking to yourself, or describing your surroundings, there are plenty of ways to practice speaking English every day. Remember, fluency doesn't come overnight. It's built little by little through consistent practice. So, even if you can only practice for a few minutes each day, it will add up over time and help you speak more confidently in any situation. Let's keep practicing together, and soon you'll notice how much more natural English feels. To truly speak English fluently every day, it's important to break down the process into manageable steps that you can easily incorporate into your life. Consistency and practice are key, and you don't have to practice for hours every day to see improvement. Instead, it's the little, everyday actions that add up over time and make a big difference in your fluency. Take the example of Alex, who works as a graphic designer. His work involves collaborating with clients and presenting design ideas in meetings, often in English. At first, Alex was very nervous about speaking English during meetings. He often felt like he couldn't find the right words, and this made him hesitate before speaking. To overcome this, Alex decided to practice speaking English in a relaxed, low-pressure environment. For example, when he was brainstorming ideas for his designs, he would say them out loud in English. If he had a new idea, he would say things like, "I think this design could use more color. I'll try a new shade of blue here." He didn't worry too much about being perfect. The goal was to get used to speaking out loud and expressing his thoughts in English. This practice became a routine for Alex. Every time he worked on a new project, he would talk aloud in English about what he was doing and why he was making certain design choices. Gradually, Alex became more comfortable speaking English during his meetings and with his colleagues. He found that the more he spoke aloud, even in a casual setting, the easier it was to express himself when it mattered the most. Alex's story shows that speaking English doesn't always need to happen in formal settings. You can practice in more informal, everyday situations. This will not only improve your fluency, but also build your confidence when it comes to real-life conversations, whether they're in the workplace or elsewhere. Remember, practicing in a relaxed way allows you to think on your feet without the pressure of perfection. Now, let's look at another example, this time from Sarah, who is a stay-at-home mom. Sarah didn't have a job that required her to speak English, but she still wanted to improve her language skills. To make English a regular part of her life, Sarah began speaking to her children in English during their daily activities. When she played with her kids, she would describe what they were doing. For instance, while playing with building blocks, Sarah would say, "Let's build a tall tower. Can you find the red block? Look, I'm putting the blue block on top." By doing this, she not only practiced her English, but also created a fun, interactive learning environment for her children. Even though Sarah didn't have the opportunity to speak English in a professional context, she found that this daily routine of speaking to her children helped her improve her fluency. Speaking out loud in everyday situations, like playing games or doing chores around the house, made her feel more comfortable using English in real life. Over time, Sarah's English became more natural, and she was able to have conversations with friends and neighbors in English without hesitation. This is a great tip for anyone who has children or even pets. You can start talking to them in English during everyday activities. It doesn't matter if they understand everything you say, it's about building the habit of speaking and becoming more comfortable expressing yourself in English. You can also use this technique when you're cooking, cleaning, or running errands. By narrating your actions in English, you make it easier to think and speak in English without even realizing it. Another person who used everyday situations to practice English is Ben. Ben is an office worker, and he often had to write emails. and reports in English. At first, Ben found writing in English to be difficult, and he wasn't sure how to improve. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment to sit down and write long reports, Ben decided to practice by writing brief emails to his friends in English. At first, he just wrote simple messages like, "Hey, how's it going? I'm doing well. I have a busy week ahead, but I'm excited for the weekend." Over time, Ben started writing more detailed emails, describing his day or explaining what he was doing. This daily practice helped him become more comfortable with writing in English, and he noticed that his writing in work-related emails started to improve as well. Ben also took advantage of other moments during his day to practice writing. For example, while on his lunch break, he would send a quick message to a friend in English, even if it was just a simple, "What's your plan for the weekend?" Writing regularly, even in short bursts, helped Ben improve his ability to express himself clearly and confidently in English. This practice, although small, built a habit of writing in English every day. For anyone who works in an office or needs to write emails regularly, writing short messages in English is an excellent way to practice. You don't need to write long paragraphs. Even a few sentences a day will help. This practice not only improves your writing, but also helps with your fluency when speaking, as writing allows you to organize your thoughts in a clear and structured way. Let's consider another example. Emma, who works as a customer service representative. Emma speaks to customers in English every day, but she was finding it hard to sound confident and fluent during calls. To build her fluency, Emma decided to practice common customer service phrases and responses before her shifts. For example, she would practice saying, "How can I help you today?" Or, "I'll look into that for you." Emma would repeat these phrases out loud, making sure she said them clearly and confidently. At first, Emma felt a bit silly repeating phrases like this, but she found that it made a huge difference in her calls. By practicing these common phrases, she built her confidence and was able to focus more on helping the customer instead of struggling with her words. Emma also made a habit of taking a few minutes after each call to review the phrases she used and think of ways to improve them for next time. This practice helped her feel more fluent, and she started to notice that her conversations with customers felt more natural. If you work in customer service or any field where you interact with people regularly, practicing key phrases in English can be a game changer. You don't have to memorize everything, but having a few go-to phrases that you can use during conversations can help you feel more confident and fluent in real-life situations. Finally, let's look at how Richard, an avid reader, used his love for books to improve his English. Richard loved reading mystery novels, but he was having trouble understanding some of the vocabulary. To solve this problem, Richard started reading the books out loud. Whenever he came across a new word, he would pause, look up its meaning, and then practice saying the word and using it in a sentence. He also started reading aloud to his wife, explaining the plot and characters as he went along. This not only helped him understand the books better, but also improved his pronunciation and speaking skills. Richard found that reading out loud in English was one of the best ways to improve his fluency. It allowed him to practice pronunciation, learn new words, and speak with confidence. This practice also helped him improve his writing skills, as he was able to learn how to use new vocabulary in sentences and organize his thoughts more clearly. Reading aloud is an excellent strategy for anyone learning English. You don't have to read novels. You can start with simple books, articles, or even your favorite blogs. The key is to make reading out loud a regular part of your day, as it helps you build both your speaking and comprehension skills. By now, you can see that there are many ways to incorporate English into your daily routine. Whether it's talking to yourself, writing emails, or practicing specific phrases, the key is consistency. Every little bit of practice helps, and the more you practice, the more confident you'll become. Whether you're learning English for work, travel, or personal growth, these everyday practices will make a huge difference in your fluency and confidence. So keep going, stay consistent, and watch your English improve over time. Continuing to build fluency in English every day might seem like a big task, but the key is to incorporate simple, enjoyable activities into your routine. These small habits will gradually make English feel like a natural part of your day. Let's continue exploring how real people, like you and me, can integrate English into our everyday lives. For example, Mark, a software developer, faced a common challenge. He had to communicate with international colleagues in English but wasn't confident in his ability to speak fluently. His job required him to attend video conferences and write emails, which made him nervous. Mark knew that he needed to improve his speaking skills, but he didn't have the time to take formal language lessons. Instead of waiting for a perfect opportunity to practice, Mark decided to take action during his commute. While on the bus to work, Mark would listen to English podcasts or news programs and repeat sentences he heard, mimicking the way the speakers pronounced the words. In the mornings, Mark would say to himself, "Today, I am going to practice my English for 15 minutes while I'm on the bus." This simple action started to make a big difference. At first, he felt a little self-conscious, especially when people were sitting nearby, but over time he got used to it. The more he repeated phrases out loud, the more natural it became for him to speak in English, even during his work meetings. By practicing this daily habit, Mark found that his vocabulary expanded, his pronunciation improved, and his overall confidence in speaking English grew significantly. He also became much more comfortable using new words and phrases in conversations, at work. What Mark's story teaches us is that fluency in English doesn't have to come from formal lessons alone. You can practice speaking English anywhere, during your commute, at home, while cooking, or even while walking outside. The key is to make these small moments of practice count. You don't need to dedicate hours a day to practicing. Even 15 to 20 minutes a day, repeated consistently, can lead to remarkable progress over time. Now, let's move on to another example, this time with Jenny, who works as a nurse. Jenny had limited time to practice her English since her job was demanding and she was often busy with patients. However, Jenny knew that speaking fluent English was essential in her job. To make English practice more manageable, Jenny decided to integrate it into her daily routine in ways that felt natural and effortless. For instance, while cleaning her house, Jenny would practice naming items she saw around her in English. She would say things like, "This is a broom," or "I need to dust the table." She didn't worry too much about making her sentences perfect. She was more focused on building the habit of speaking out loud in English. As she got more comfortable with the vocabulary related to household items, Jenny started practicing more complex sentences. For example, while preparing dinner, she would say things like, "I am chopping the onions now. After that, I will fry the chicken. The recipe says to cook it for 20 minutes." These simple actions helped Jenny feel more confident using English in everyday situations, without needing to set aside extra time specifically for practice. Jenny also used her commute to work as another opportunity to practice her English. On the bus, she would listen to English audiobooks or podcasts. By listening to natural English conversations, Jenny could improve her listening skills and learn how native speakers naturally express themselves. After listening to a short section, Jenny would pause and try to repeat what she heard out loud, mimicking the tone and rhythm of the speaker. This helped her sound more fluent when speaking to patients and colleagues at the hospital. Jenny's experience shows us that fluency isn't just about speaking English all the time in formal settings. You can incorporate it into your daily life by speaking out loud while doing household tasks, practicing in short bursts during commutes, and listening to English content to improve both your speaking and listening skills. The goal is to make English feel like a normal part of your routine, just like any other task you do during the day. In addition to speaking English during everyday activities, Sarah, who works as a teacher, found another way to build her fluency by interacting with others in English. She decided to start a conversation group with some of her friends who were also learning English. Once a week, Sarah and her friends would meet at a local cafe where they would only speak in English for an hour. At first, Sarah felt nervous, unsure whether she would be able to keep up with the conversation, but she was determined to practice. She began by introducing simple topics like, "What did you do this weekend?" or "What's your favorite book?" This made it easier for everyone to join in without feeling too pressured. Over time, Sarah found that the more she participated in these conversations, the easier it became to express herself in English. Her vocabulary grew, and she became better at understanding different accents and speech patterns. The conversations helped her learn useful phrases and expressions that she could use in other situations, such as talking to her students or coworkers. This experience was invaluable in improving her fluency, and she encourages anyone learning English to find a conversation group or a language partner to practice with. It's a fun and social way to improve, and you learn much more than just vocabulary. You learn to communicate naturally in English. Sarah's story highlights the importance of social interaction in language learning. While practicing on your own is important, interacting with others in English is crucial to developing fluency. Having regular conversations with people who are also learning English can help you overcome the fear of making mistakes and boost your confidence in speaking. The more you practice speaking English with others, the more comfortable you will become. Let's now consider an example from David, a businessman who travels frequently for work. David needed to speak English fluently with clients and colleagues from around the world. He found that even though he could understand English when others spoke, he struggled to find the right words to express himself clearly, especially in high-pressure situations. To overcome this, David decided to practice speaking in English before each meeting. He would review his presentation notes, but instead of just reading them silently, he would practice speaking them out loud. He would say, "Good morning. Today I'll be presenting our new marketing strategy. First, we'll discuss the goals." This practice helped David feel more confident when speaking during actual meetings. It allowed him to speak more smoothly and naturally without having to search for words. In addition to his practice before meetings, David also started keeping a journal in English. Each evening, after his workday was over, David would write about his day in English. He would describe the meetings he had, the decisions that were made, and how he felt about the progress on his projects. At first, it was difficult for David to write in English, but with time, he found that it helped him think more clearly and express his thoughts better in writing and speaking. Writing every day also helped David improve his vocabulary and sentence structure, which he was able to use in both his spoken and written English. David's approach teaches us that preparation is essential when it comes to improving fluency. By practicing speaking before important meetings and writing regularly in English, David made sure he was always ready to express himself clearly. His story also shows that writing and speaking are closely connected. Writing in English every day can be an excellent way to practice organizing your thoughts and improving your vocabulary, which directly impacts your spoken fluency. Now consider Tom, who is a college student. Tom had always struggled with English pronunciation, especially when it came to certain sounds that weren't present in his native language. He often found himself mispronouncing words and felt embarrassed when others couldn't understand him. To overcome this, Tom started recording himself speaking in English. He would read passages from his textbooks or repeat sentences from his favorite English podcasts. After recording himself, Tom would listen back to his recordings and compare them to the original speakers. He paid attention to his intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation. At first, Tom was discouraged because his recordings didn't sound like the native speakers, but over time, he began to notice improvement. He started focusing on the sounds that were hardest for him and practicing them repeatedly. Eventually, Tom noticed that his pronunciation improved, and he felt more confident speaking English in class and with his friends. Recording yourself and comparing it to native speakers is a great way to improve your pronunciation and fluency. Tom's approach shows that practicing pronunciation through recording yourself is a useful tool for anyone looking to sound more fluent in English. It helps you catch mistakes that you might not notice while speaking and allows you to track your progress over time. By focusing on specific sounds and practicing regularly, you can improve your pronunciation and feel more confident speaking English. In summary, building fluency in English every day is all about finding ways to incorporate the language into your routine. Whether it's speaking out loud while cooking, writing a journal, practicing key phrases, or recording yourself, the goal is to make English a regular part of your life. Fluency doesn't happen overnight, but by practicing consistently and in different ways, you'll be able to speak English confidently and naturally. The more you practice, the more you will improve, and before you know it, speaking English will become second nature to you. Keep practicing, and you'll see progress in no time. Building on the idea that fluency comes through regular practice, let's dive even deeper into the methods and strategies that can truly make a difference. These stories from real people illustrate how you can improve your English every day, without it feeling like a huge task. Let's explore how others, people just like you, are successfully building their fluency, and how you can apply these same strategies to your daily life. First, let's talk about Charlie, a young professional working in marketing. Charlie knew that English fluency was essential for his job, but he also had a busy schedule and often felt like there wasn't enough time to practice. However, Charlie decided to change his mindset. Instead of focusing on the idea that learning English took a lot of time, he started looking for moments in his day to practice, no matter how small. For example, while waiting for his coffee in the morning, he would take a few moments to read an article in English or repeat a sentence from an English podcast he listened to the night before. At first, Charlie thought that this kind of quick practice wouldn't really help, but he was surprised by the progress he made. By using these small pockets of time, Charlie was able to build a consistent habit of engaging with English. Over time, his vocabulary increased, and he started noticing that he could follow conversations in meetings with less effort. Charlie also found that he could express himself more easily during presentations and conference calls. All of this came from practicing in little moments of the day, whether it was a 5-minute podcast or a few sentences from a work email. This approach highlights an important lesson. You don't need to have long hours of practice every day. It's the small, consistent actions that make the difference. Charlie's story shows that it's not about finding a huge block of time, but about fitting in those smaller moments of practice wherever you can. Whether it's listening to English while commuting or taking a few minutes to read aloud from a book, these small steps add up over time. Charlie's story also proves that when you make English a part of your daily life, it stops feeling like a chore and starts becoming just another part of your routine. Now let's move on to Sophie, who is a busy mom of 2 young children. Sophie knew how important it was to improve her English for her career, but finding time to study was a challenge. Instead of feeling frustrated about not having enough time, Sophie decided to think creatively. She realized that many daily activities could become opportunities to practice English. While making dinner, Sophie would talk to her children in simple English. She would explain things like, Sophie also took it a step further by encouraging her children to ask questions in English, even if their level wasn't high. They would ask things like, "What is this called?" or "Can we play outside?" By speaking English during everyday activities, Sophie was able to combine learning with something she was already doing. This helped her avoid feeling guilty about not having extra time for studying. On weekends, Sophie would also make a habit of reading books in English with her kids. This wasn't only for her children's language development, but also a chance for Sophie to practice her reading skills. By focusing on pronunciation and fluency while reading, Sophie could improve her skills without even realizing it. These activities became a win-win situation. Sophie was able to practice English, and her children were learning it too. Sophie's approach teaches us that fluency doesn't always require structured lessons or hours of studying. It's about integrating English into your daily life and making it a natural part of your routine. You don't need to study for hours at a time. Simply talking, reading, or listening in English throughout your day can make a significant impact. Just like, Sophie, you can use everyday activities as opportunities for language practice. Next, let's look at Peter, a young university student studying business administration. Peter had always struggled with English, especially when it came to speaking. He felt nervous when it was his turn to speak in class, and he often worried about making mistakes. To overcome his fear, Peter decided to make a habit of speaking English every day, even if it was just for a few minutes. At first, he didn't feel very confident, so he started by talking to himself in English. He would describe what he was doing like, "I am reading a book right now," or "I'm going to make some coffee." This might sound a little strange, but it worked for Peter. By speaking English to himself, Peter became more comfortable with the language and started feeling less nervous when speaking with others. Over time, Peter began practicing with his friends. They would meet for coffee after class and speak only in English for an hour. Even though some of them made mistakes, they didn't mind. The important thing was that they were practicing together, and this made Peter feel less self-conscious. Peter also found that joining an English-speaking study group helped him a lot. When he prepared for exams or worked on projects with his friends, they would discuss the material in English. This gave Peter more chances to speak and interact in English in a comfortable setting. By practicing English in a group, Peter built his fluency in a supportive environment where everyone was focused on improving together. Peter's experience demonstrates that overcoming the fear of speaking in English is often about taking small steps and making it part of your daily routine. Speaking to yourself or with friends, even if it's just for a short time, can help you build confidence and fluency. The more you practice speaking, the less fear you'll have. If you're nervous about making mistakes, remember that everyone makes mistakes when learning a new language. It's all part of the process. In addition to speaking, listening is another crucial aspect of becoming fluent in English. Sarah, a social worker, struggled with understanding English in real-life conversations. She found it challenging to follow fast-paced discussions or understand different accents. To improve her listening skills, Sarah started watching English language news every morning while drinking her coffee. She found that listening to news stories allowed her to hear English in a variety of contexts and with different accents. At first, it was difficult for her to understand everything, but she didn't give up. Over time, Sarah became more familiar with different accents and the speed at which native speakers talked. She also learned to pick up on keywords, which helped her follow the conversation even if she didn't understand every single word. Sarah also started listening to English podcasts, especially those that featured casual conversations. Listening to podcasts allowed Sarah to hear the way native speakers interacted in everyday situations, which was very different from the formal language used in textbooks. By listening to these podcasts regularly, Sarah improved her listening comprehension and began to feel more comfortable in conversations. Sarah's approach shows that improving your listening skills takes time, but it's worth it. By regularly exposing yourself to English through news, podcasts, or other audio materials, You can train your ears to understand different accents and conversation styles. As with speaking, the key is consistency. By making a habit of listening to English, every day, even for a short time, you'll gradually notice improvement. Now, let's explore how writing can also play a vital role in improving your fluency. David, who works as an engineer, found that his writing skills needed attention. Although he could speak fairly well, his written English was less polished. To improve, David started keeping a daily journal in English. At first, it felt like a chore, but soon he began looking forward to writing. He would describe his day, talk about his work, or even write short stories. Writing every day helped David improve his grammar and sentence structure while also expanding his vocabulary. The more he wrote, the more natural it became for him to express his thoughts in English. David also started writing emails and messages in English, even when they weren't required. For example, if he needed to send a message to a colleague, he would write it in English, even if they were both comfortable with their native language. This extra practice helped David get used to writing in English, and he noticed that he made fewer mistakes over time. Writing in English every day not only improved his fluency but also helped him express his ideas more clearly. David's experience teaches us that writing can be just as important as speaking and listening when it comes to becoming fluent in a language. By writing every day, you can strengthen your language skills, improve your grammar, and become more comfortable with expressing yourself. Whether it's keeping a journal, writing emails, or completing writing exercises, regular practice will help you improve your overall fluency. In conclusion, fluency in English comes from consistent practice, and you can practice English in many different ways. Speaking to yourself, having conversations with friends, listening to podcasts, watching the news, writing in a journal, these are all simple ways to incorporate English into your daily life. It doesn't matter if you're a busy professional, a student, or a parent. By making small adjustments to your routine, you can improve your English skills every day. The key is to stay consistent and make English a natural part of your day. The more you practice, the easier it will become, and soon enough you'll notice that speaking English fluently is second nature to you. Let's continue exploring how you can integrate English practice into every part of your life and build fluency. As we go deeper, you'll see that improving your English doesn't need to be overwhelming. It's about making gradual, manageable changes that you can stick with every day. We've already discussed how you can use moments during your day to practice and how speaking, listening, and writing can improve your skills. But now, let's explore even more practical strategies that will keep you on track toward fluency. 1. Key point that everyone should understand is that fluency is not about speaking perfectly, but about speaking comfortably and naturally. Lucy, a nurse working in a busy hospital, realized that she was getting stuck when trying to explain medical terms to her patients in English. She spoke well enough for daily communication, but when it came to specific terms, she often found herself searching for words or not understanding the patient's questions clearly. So, Lucy decided to set a specific goal. She would focus on one new word or phrase each day. For instance, she might focus on learning the names of medical equipment, or on phrases commonly used when interacting with patients. She would look them up, write them down, and try to use them during her shifts. Instead of waiting until she felt fluent, Lucy aimed to just add one small piece of vocabulary to her daily routine. Over time, Lucy found that her ability to speak comfortably. This method shows that you don't have to learn everything all at once to be fluent. Fluency is about consistency. Just like Lucy, you can take small steps, one word or phrase at a time, and build your fluency gradually. When you break down the challenge of learning English into smaller parts, it becomes much easier to manage, and the progress you make each day will soon add up to significant improvement. Another approach to learning English every day is to set aside some time specifically for language practice. But instead of thinking of it as study time, think of it as a time to relax and enjoy the process. For example, Jack, a software developer, started setting aside 15 minutes in the evening to read articles about technology in English. At first, he didn't feel confident with all the technical jargon, but he continued reading every night. By doing this, he exposed himself to the specific language of his field in a relaxed way. Over time, Jack became more comfortable reading technical content in English, and he found that his general English skills also improved. Jack's story highlights how it's important to make learning enjoyable, especially when you're incorporating English into your regular routine. By picking something that interests you, whether it's a topic related to your job, a hobby, or a favorite subject, you can make your learning experience much more enjoyable. It becomes easier to stay motivated when you're learning something you care about. For Jack, reading about technology in English wasn't just a way to improve his fluency. It also made him feel more connected to his work and more confident in his professional role. Similarly, many English learners often struggle with feeling like they don't have enough time to study. But, like Sarah, a busy high school teacher, you can learn how to practice English during short moments throughout your day. Sarah had a full schedule with teaching, grading papers, and family responsibilities, so finding time to practice English seemed impossible. However, Sarah came up with a creative solution. She would use her lunch breaks to listen to English podcasts. Whether she was eating her lunch in the staff room or walking to her next class, she would always have her headphones in, listening to a podcast about education or teaching. At first, Sarah didn't understand everything, but by listening regularly, she started catching more of the conversations. Her listening skills improved, and she became better at understanding her students when they spoke to her in English. Sarah's story teaches us that you can use small windows of time, like your lunch break or a commute, to practice English. It's all about consistency. Listening during those moments, even when you don't have much time, helps you build up your ability to understand spoken English. The more you expose yourself to the language, the easier it will become to understand it in real-life conversations. You can also practice your speaking skills while you're on your own, just like David, a high school student. David often struggled to speak fluently in class because he was too shy to speak in front of others. But he realized that if he could practice speaking alone, he would build more confidence. So, David started recording himself speaking about different topics like his weekend plans or a movie he had watched. He would then listen to the recording and think about how he could improve. Over time, David became more comfortable speaking on his own and was less nervous when it was his turn to speak in class. David's story shows how speaking practice doesn't need to happen in front of other people. If you're shy or nervous about speaking English, it's okay to practice by yourself. You can record your voice on your phone or in a notebook, and then listen to your recordings. Doing this helps you improve your pronunciation, tone, and fluency. It also builds your confidence in speaking without worrying about making mistakes in front of others. Another excellent way to practice English every day is by interacting with other learners or native speakers. Let's take Mark, a retiree who wanted to keep his brain active and improve his English. Mark joined an online language exchange program where he spoke with people from around the world. They would practice English together, helping each other improve. Mark found that these conversations were incredibly helpful because they allowed him to hear real English, spoken by native speakers in everyday situations. It also gave him a chance to ask questions about things he didn't understand, which helped him learn more quickly. Mark's story demonstrates that language exchange is a powerful way to improve your speaking and listening skills. By engaging with other learners or native speakers, you get a chance to practice in a real conversational setting. You learn how people actually speak in everyday life rather than just textbook language. This interaction helps you get used to different accents, speeds of speech, and conversational rhythms. Plus, it's a great way to make friends from different cultures while improving your language skills at the same time. Learning a new language is a journey, and it's important to remember that fluency takes time. But you don't need to be perfect. The goal is to communicate and enjoy the process. It's about making English part of your daily life, whether through reading, writing, listening, or speaking. You don't need long hours of study to see progress. Little actions every day lead to big results. Let's look at Sarah again, but this time let's focus on her writing. She decided to improve her writing by starting a blog in English. Sarah would write posts about her daily experiences as a teacher and what she was learning about education. She didn't worry too much about making her posts perfect. Instead, she focused on writing regularly. Over time, her writing improved, and she noticed that she could express herself more clearly and naturally. Writing every day allowed Sarah to practice sentence structure, vocabulary, and grammar in a way that felt natural and fun. Sarah's story reminds us that writing doesn't have to be stressful. Whether it's a blog, a journal, or even short text to friends, writing regularly helps you improve your skills. You can make it fun by writing about topics that interest you. With consistent practice, your writing will become more fluent, and you'll see improvement. Let's wrap up with one final story about Jason, who was a stay-at-home dad. Jason wanted to improve his English, but had a limited amount of time each day. Instead of focusing on the idea that he had to find hours to study, Jason realized that he could learn English through activities he already enjoyed. For example, when he went grocery shopping, he would practice saying the names of different products in English. While cleaning the house, Jason would repeat household vocabulary and describe what he was doing in English. He even started listening to podcasts while driving his kids to school. By incorporating English into his everyday activities, Jason made learning part of his routine. Jason's story is a great reminder that fluency isn't just about studying, it's about finding ways to make English a part of your daily life. By speaking to yourself, listening during daily tasks, and practicing when you can, you'll make steady progress toward fluency. Every little step counts, and before you know it, English will become second nature. Now that we've explored how you can add English practice to your daily life, let's dive even deeper into how you can build a routine that feels natural and enjoyable. The goal here is not to overwhelm you, but to show you that speaking English fluently every day is not as difficult as it may seem at first. Let's explore different techniques and real-life examples from people just like you, who have made English a part of their daily routine and improved their skills. We've seen that consistency is key. Small, steady steps make a big difference over time. But there's another aspect of learning English that's often overlooked: creating a learning environment that motivates and inspires you. If you can surround yourself with English every day in a way that excites you, you'll naturally improve, without even realizing it. Let's talk about Simon. Simon is a businessman who frequently travels for work. In the past, he would always try to cram in study sessions during his flights, but he often found it difficult to focus. Instead of trying to study hard on flights, Simon decided to change his approach. He began using his travel time to listen to English podcasts and audiobooks related to business and leadership. At first, it felt like a challenge because the vocabulary was unfamiliar, but over time, Simon became comfortable with it. He learned business-specific phrases and expressions that helped him when speaking to colleagues or clients abroad. The I. Key here was that Simon didn't treat these listening sessions like traditional studying. Instead, he treated them as a way to engage with the language while doing something he was already doing: traveling. What Simon's experience shows us is that learning English can be about using the time you already have. Instead of making extra time for study, think about how you can make use of your current routine. Whether you're commuting, working out, or doing housework, there's always a chance to expose yourself to English. You can use the time wisely by listening to podcasts, watching short videos, or even repeating phrases that you hear. The more you surround yourself with English, the more comfortable you'll become with it. Another important aspect of fluency is using English in real-life situations. While studying and practicing at home is helpful, there's something powerful about using the language when it matters most, like when you're talking to others in your community. Meet Anna, a librarian who decided to use her role at the library as an opportunity to practice speaking English. Every day she made it a point to speak with English-speaking visitors, asking them questions and offering help when needed. Initially, Anna felt nervous about making mistakes, but she quickly realized that the visitors were kind and understanding. They were simply happy that she was trying to communicate in English. Anna's experience teaches us an important lesson. About speaking English every day, it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, making mistakes is an essential part of the learning process. As you practice speaking in real-life situations, you'll become more confident and fluent. The key is to keep speaking, keep practicing, and not worry about being perfect. As Anna discovered, people appreciate when you try, even if your English isn't perfect. If you're looking for more ways to get practice, consider the power of storytelling. We all love a good story. Stories are a natural way to learn and understand new vocabulary and phrases in context. Take Tom, for example. Tom is an engineer who works on large projects, but he also has a passion for storytelling. He started a personal project where he would write and tell short stories in English. These stories were about his childhood, his travels, and his career. By writing these stories, Tom not only practiced his English writing skills, but also worked on his speaking skills when he shared the stories with his friends or family. He found that telling stories in English helped him speak more fluidly, because he didn't have to think too much about grammar or vocabulary. The story would flow naturally, and the more he practiced, the more confident he became in his speaking. Tom's approach is a great example of how storytelling can help you learn English. You don't need to be a professional writer or speaker. Just start with simple stories about your own life. Tell the story in your head, and then write it down or speak it out loud. This method helps you focus on fluency and flow, rather than getting stuck on perfect grammar. The more stories you tell, the more your fluency will improve. Another person who found success with storytelling is Emma, a mother who was learning English at home. Emma found it difficult to keep up with her language lessons, especially with her busy schedule. However, she realized that her children were a great resource for practice. Every night she would read them a story in English before bed. This practice allowed Emma to improve her pronunciation and vocabulary, as she would read the same stories over and over again. Sometimes her children would ask her questions about the story, and she'd have to explain things in English. This extra challenge helped Emma practice thinking on her feet and responding in English without pausing for too long. Eventually, Emma began feeling more comfortable with English, both when reading and when speaking to others. Like Anna's experience, Emma's story shows us that you don't need a classroom to practice. You can find opportunities to use English in your everyday life, whether it's reading to your kids, chatting with a neighbor, or even speaking to yourself in English. Using English in natural, everyday situations can accelerate your fluency. A great way to improve your speaking and writing skills is through regular journaling. Let's look at Michael, a student who started keeping a journal in English. Every day, he would write about his thoughts, experiences, and dreams. At first, it felt challenging to express his ideas in English. However, over time, he became more confident. Michael noticed that his writing improved as he began using more varied vocabulary and grammar structures. Additionally, journaling allowed him to reflect on his day in English, which helped him learn how to structure his thoughts more clearly. Writing regularly gave Michael the chance to review what he had learned and apply it in a personal and meaningful way. Michael's experience highlights the benefits of journaling in English. It's a low-pressure way to practice your writing and thinking in the language. The more you write, the more you'll learn about sentence structure, vocabulary, and grammar. And don't worry about making mistakes. Journaling is a private. Let's continue exploring some more powerful strategies for becoming fluent in English every day, starting with the importance of building a supportive environment around you. Surrounding yourself with English on a regular basis doesn't just help you learn faster, but it also gives you the confidence to practice without feeling judged. One great way to do this is by finding a study buddy or a language partner. Take David, for example. David is a lawyer who wanted to improve his English communication skills for his job. He often felt nervous speaking in meetings because he was afraid of making mistakes. To overcome this, David found a language partner who was also learning English. Every week, they would meet for an hour, either in person or over a video call, and talk about different topics. Sometimes they would discuss legal matters, and other times they would talk about their hobbies, like cooking or traveling. David found that by speaking with his language partner regularly, he not only gained more confidence but also learned useful vocabulary that he could use in his work. The best part was that he didn't have to worry about making mistakes because they were both in the same boat. They supported each other's learning, and that helped David improve much faster. David's experience teaches us an important lesson about finding a language partner. It's not just about learning from each other's mistakes, but also about having someone to encourage you when you feel unsure. When you have a practice buddy, you create a safe space where you can try new things without feeling like you're being judged. And you'll get immediate feedback, which is essential for improving your speaking and listening skills. Now let's talk about another key aspect of fluency, thinking in English. This might sound difficult at first, but it's one of the most effective ways to improve your fluency and speed when speaking. The more you think in English, the less time you'll spend translating from your native language, which means you'll be able to speak more naturally and confidently. Here's how. Sarah, a nurse, started thinking in English to improve her fluency. Sarah had been learning English for a few years, but she still struggled with forming sentences quickly when speaking. One day, she decided to try a new method. Instead of translating everything in her head from her native language, Spanish, Sarah started thinking directly in English. She would wake up in the morning and think, "What do I need to do today?" Or, "What should I wear to work?" She started using English in her internal thoughts, and over time, this helped her speak much faster. Now, when she's at work or talking to her colleagues, English comes naturally to her. She no longer has to pause and think about how to say something. She just says it. Sarah's story shows us that thinking in English is a great way to build fluency. It might take some time at first, especially if you're used to thinking in your native language, but it's one of the most powerful tools for becoming fluent. Start by thinking about simple things in English, what you're going to have for lunch, what you need to do during the day, or even your thoughts about a movie or book. Eventually, your brain will switch to English automatically, and you'll start speaking more fluidly without even trying. Another great strategy is to practice shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a piece of spoken English, like a podcast, an interview or a video, and repeat what you hear, imitating the speaker's pronunciation and rhythm as closely as possible. It's a technique that helps you improve both your speaking and listening skills at the same time. You're not just listening to the language, but actively engaging with it by speaking out loud. Let's consider the experience of Mark, a teacher, who wanted to improve his English accent. He found a YouTube video that featured a native English speaker with a clear and easy-to-understand accent. Mark listened to the speaker for a few minutes, then paused the video and tried to repeat exactly what the speaker said. At first, he struggled with the pronunciation, but he didn't give up. He repeated the sentences over and over until they sounded more natural. After a few weeks of shadowing practice, Mark's accent improved significantly. He also noticed that his listening skills got better because he was now able to recognize the different sounds and rhythms of native English speakers. Mark's experience shows how shadowing is an effective technique for improving your pronunciation and listening skills, and it can be done anywhere, at home, on the bus, or during your break at work. Shadowing doesn't just help with pronunciation, though it also helps you learn new vocabulary and phrases in context. When you hear a word or phrase used in a sentence, it's easier to remember because you've heard it in a real-life situation. That's why shadowing is so beneficial. It's not just about repeating words, but also about learning how English is used in everyday conversation. Let's move on to another valuable practice: using English for practical purposes. Sometimes we focus so much on studying the language that we forget to use it in real-life situations. This is where applying English to your day-to-day tasks can make a big difference. Whether you're writing an email, making a phone call, or even shopping online, try using English instead of your native language whenever you can. For example, Laura, a marketing manager, decided to improve her English writing skills by switching her work emails to English. At first, it was challenging for her because she wasn't confident in her writing ability. But as she started writing more emails in English, she gradually improved. She learned how to phrase her ideas more clearly and use appropriate professional language. Eventually, Laura was able to write emails in English with ease, and she felt more confident communicating with international clients. By using English for practical tasks, Laura not only improved her writing, but also learned how to use the language in a professional setting. Laura's experience highlights how practical use of English can help you improve your skills in a real-world context. By making English a part of your everyday tasks, you'll get the practice you need to feel more comfortable with the language. Plus, it's a great way to improve your vocabulary because you'll be learning words and phrases that are directly relevant to your life or work. Now, let's explore the idea of using mobile apps to practice English every day. Technology has made learning English more accessible than ever. There are countless apps available that can help you practice speaking, listening, writing, and even reading in English. Whether it's a language learning app or a dictionary app, these tools allow you to practice English anywhere and anytime. Take John, for example. John is a chef who spends a lot of time in the kitchen and doesn't always have time for formal lessons. However, he found an app that allowed him to practice English while he worked. Every morning, John would listen to a short English lesson on the app while preparing his ingredients. The app taught him useful vocabulary related to food and cooking, which he could use at work. Over time, he found that he was able to understand recipes and cooking techniques in English more easily. The app also included a speech feature that helped him practice pronunciation, which helped him feel more confident when speaking to his English-speaking customers. John's experience demonstrates the convenience of using mobile apps for learning English. Whether you're at home, at work, or even on public transport, you can use your phone to practice English in small but meaningful ways. And by making it a habit to use these apps regularly, you can stay consistent with your learning. Finally, let's talk about the power of reflection. As you work on speaking English every day, it's important to take time to reflect on your progress. Keep track of the words and phrases you've learned, and celebrate the small victories along the way. Reflection helps you stay motivated and gives you a sense of achievement. You can also ask yourself questions like, "How did I do today?" Or, "What could I improve next time?" This kind of reflection allows you to stay on track and make sure you're getting closer to your goal of speaking English fluently. Take Rachel, for example. Rachel is a university student who had been learning English for a few years. She decided to keep a language journal to track her progress. Every day, she would write a short entry about her day in English. Over time, she started noticing patterns in her writing, certain words or phrases she used frequently, and areas where she needed improvement. By reflecting on her journal entries, Rachel was able to set specific goals for herself and work on areas where she felt less confident. This helped her stay motivated and focused on her language learning journey. Rachel's story shows the importance of reflection in the learning process. By regularly reviewing your progress and setting small, achievable goals, you'll continue improving and gaining confidence in your ability to speak English. As we can see, speaking English fluently every day doesn't require a drastic change in your life. With simple adjustments like incorporating English into your daily activities, using technology, practicing with a partner, and reflecting on your progress, you can build the fluency you've always wanted. The key is consistency, patience, and creativity in finding ways to engage with English every day. It's about making English a part of your routine in a natural and enjoyable way.